I've never liked staying in hotels alone. It's not that I think hotels are dangerous by default. Most of the time they're fine. Clean, predictable, forgettable. But there's always that underlying feeling that you're sleeping in a place where hundreds of strangers have been before you, and where, at any given moment, you're surrounded by people you know absolutely nothing about. This happened about a year ago during a work trip. I was sent to a small city about 3 hours away for a 2-day training. The company booked my hotel, which ended up being one of those mid-range places just off the highway. Not run down, not luxury either. Somewhere in the middle. The kind of place where everything looks decent at first glance, but starts to feel slightly off the longer you're there. I checked in around 6:30 p.m. The lobby was quiet. One person at the front desk, no one else around. The clerk barely looked up when I approached. He handed me a key card, told me I was on the 3rd floor, and pointed toward the elevators without much else. No small talk, no explanation of amenities, nothing. I didn't think much of that at the time. My room was at the very end of the hallway. That was the first thing I didn't like. Long hotel hallways already feel strange when they're empty, but this one felt longer than it should have. The carpet muted my footsteps, and the lighting was dim enough that parts of the hall faded into shadow the farther I walked. My room was the last door on the right, directly across from another room at the very end. Room 312. Mine was 311. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and immediately did what I always do. Checked everything. Bathroom, closet, behind the shower curtain, under the bed. I've done that routine for years. Never found anything. That night wasn't different. The room looked normal. I dropped my bag, turned on the TV for background noise, and ordered food. Around 8 o'clock, I went out to grab it from the front desk, where it had been left by the delivery driver. When I came back up to the 3rd floor, I noticed something. The door to room 312 was slightly open, not wide, just enough to show darkness inside. I slowed down as I walked past it. No sound came from inside, no movement, just that narrow gap. I remember thinking it was strange, but not necessarily alarming. Maybe someone had just left in a hurry, or hadn't closed it all the way. I went into my room and locked the door behind me. At around 10:30, I got ready for bed. I turned off the TV, set an alarm for the morning, and lay down. For a while, everything was quiet. Then, sometime after midnight, I woke up. I didn't know why at first. Then I heard it. A sound from the other side of the wall. Room 312. It was faint, but clear enough once I focused. Someone was talking. At first, I couldn't make out the words. It sounded like a conversation, but only one voice. Like someone on the phone, speaking quietly but steadily. I turned onto my side, listening. The voice went on for a few seconds, then stopped. Silence. Then it started again. Same voice, same tone. That's when I noticed something strange. The pattern. It wasn't a normal conversation. There were no pauses long enough for someone else to respond. No variation in tone. It sounded rehearsed, like the person was repeating the same thing over and over. I sat up slightly, listening harder. This time, I caught a few words. Not supposed to. Then silence. Then again, a few seconds later. Not supposed to. The exact same tone. The exact same rhythm. My stomach tightened. I looked at the wall, even though I couldn't see anything through it. Then the voice stopped completely. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard something else. A soft, tapping sound, coming from that same wall. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Pause. It went on like that for about 20 seconds before stopping. I didn't sleep much after that. At some point, I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, my alarm was going off at 7 a.m. Everything felt normal again. Too normal. I got ready, left the room, and headed down to the lobby for coffee before my training. As I walked down the hallway, I glanced at room 312. The door was closed. No gap. No sign that it had ever been open. I went downstairs, grabbed coffee, and sat in the lobby for a few minutes. That's when I overheard something. 2 staff members talking behind the desk. "Third floor again," one of them said quietly. "Yeah," the other replied. "Same one." I didn't catch the rest because they lowered their voices when they noticed me nearby. That stayed in my head all morning. The training lasted most of the day. By the time I got back to the hotel, it was around 6 p.m. As I stepped out of the elevator on the 3rd floor, I immediately noticed something. Room 312's door was open again. Wider this time. Not just a crack. Fully open. And the room inside was dark. No lights on. No movement. I slowed down again as I approached. I told myself not to look, but I couldn't help it. As I passed the doorway, I glanced inside. At first, I saw nothing. Then I realized why. The furniture was gone. The room was empty. No bed. No desk. No TV. Just bare carpet and walls. I stopped walking. That didn't make sense. I stepped back slightly and looked again. Same thing. Completely empty. Like it hadn't been used in years. Then I noticed something on the floor near the far wall. A phone. An old landline phone. Sitting by itself. And as I stood there, staring at it, it rang. Loud. Sharp. Echoing in the empty room. I jumped back immediately. The ringing continued. I didn't wait. I went straight into my room, locked the door, and stood there trying to process what I had just seen. An empty room. A ringing phone. The same room I had heard someone talking in the night before. None of it made sense. I grabbed my phone and called the front desk. The same clerk answered. I told him I thought there was something wrong with the room next to mine. There was a pause. Then he said, "There's no one staying in 312. "I know," I said. "I just saw inside. There's nothing in there. But there was someone last night. I heard them." Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said, "Sir, please stay in your room. We'll handle it." That didn't make me feel better. At all. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door, listening. Everything was quiet again. Until around 11 p.m. That's when I heard it. The voice. Right outside my door. Not through the wall anymore. In the hallway. Not supposed to. Same tone. Same rhythm. Right outside. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. Then, 3 taps. On my door. I stopped breathing. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Exactly like the night before. I slowly backed away from the door. The voice came again. Closer this time. Right on the other side. Not supposed to. I grabbed my phone and called the front desk again. No answer. The tapping stopped. Silence. Then I heard something I'll never forget. A key card beep right at my door, like someone trying to unlock it. I ran to the door and threw the deadbolt across. The handle moved immediately after. Hard. Like someone was trying to get in. I shouted that I was calling the police. Everything went quiet. Completely silent. I stayed awake the rest of the night. Didn't sleep at all. At 6 a.m., I packed my things and left. I went straight to the front desk to check out early. There was a different employee there this time. I told him everything. He didn't look surprised. He just nodded slowly. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "Room 312's been out of service for months." I asked why. He hesitated, then said, "We've had complaints." I didn't ask anything else. I just left. I've stayed in hotels since then, but never at the end of the hallway, and never next to an empty room. I didn't realize anything was wrong with the hotel until I saw myself on the screen. This happened last summer when I was traveling alone for a short vacation. I had booked a 3-night stay at a mid-sized hotel near a busy downtown area. Wasn't cheap, but it wasn't luxury either. Just one of those places that looks modern enough online that you don't question it. Check-in was smooth. The lobby was bright. A few people were sitting around, and there was a wall behind the front desk showing multiple security camera feeds. I remember noticing it because it was unusually large, at least 10 different camera views cycling every few seconds. I didn't think much of it at the time. The front desk clerk gave me my key card and told me I was on the 5th floor. My room was near the middle of the hallway, nothing unusual. I went up, checked the room like I always do, dropped my bag, and went back out to grab food. The first night was completely normal. I came back around 10:30 p.m., locked the door, watched TV, and went to sleep. Nothing happened. The second day was the same. I spent most of it out exploring, came back in the evening, showered, and went downstairs around 9 p.m. to grab a drink from the small convenience area near the front desk. That's when I noticed something strange. The security screens behind the desk were showing the usual views: hallways, elevators, lobby. But one of them caught my attention. It was my hallway. I recognized it immediately, but something about it felt off. I stepped a little closer, pretending to look at the snack shelves while watching the screen out of the corner of my eye. The camera showed the hallway outside my room, except the lighting looked different, darker, and the angle seemed slightly off, like it wasn't positioned where it should be. Then I saw movement. A person walked into frame. It was me. I froze. I was watching myself walk down the hallway toward my room. Same clothes, same bag over my shoulder. The exact moment I had returned earlier that evening. I felt a wave of confusion. That didn't make sense. The cameras weren't supposed to be showing recordings. They were live feeds. At least, that's what they looked like. I watched as the version of me on the screen reached my door, unlocked it, and went inside. The hallway stayed empty after that. Then, without any transition, the feed changed. Not to another camera, to the same hallway, but empty again, like nothing had happened. I stared at it for a few seconds, trying to process what I had just seen. Then the clerk behind the desk spoke. "Can I help you with something?" I turned quickly. "Those screens," I said, trying to sound casual. "Are they live?" He looked at them briefly. "Yeah," he said. "Mostly." Mostly. That word stuck with me. "What do you mean, mostly?" I asked. He hesitated. "Sometimes they loop older footage," he said. "System thing." That didn't make me feel better, at all. I nodded and walked away, grabbing a drink I didn't even want just to have a reason to leave. When I got back to my room, I locked the door and stood there for a moment, thinking. Looping older footage. That had to be it. I had just seen a recording of myself from earlier. That made sense. It was logical. But something about the timing bothered me. Why that exact moment? Why that exact hallway? And why did it feel wrong? I shook it off and tried to relax. Around 11:30 p.m., I got into bed. I was still thinking about the camera feed, but eventually I started to drift off. Then I heard something, a faint sound from the TV. I opened my eyes. The TV was off, or at least, it should have been. The screen was black, but there was a soft static noise coming from it. I sat up slowly. The static grew louder. Then the screen flickered, just for a second, and I saw something. A hallway. Not mine, a different one. The image disappeared immediately. The screen went black again. The static stopped. I stared at the TV for a long time. Then I grabbed the remote and turned it on. Normal. Regular channels. Nothing unusual. I turned it off again. Silence. I told myself it was nothing. Just a glitch. Like the camera system. Old wiring. Signal issues. Things like that happen. I lay back down. But I didn't fall asleep. About 20 minutes later, the static came back. This time, louder. I sat up immediately. The TV flickered again. The same hallway. Long, empty. But this time, it didn't disappear right away. It stayed on screen. The angle was low, like it was being filmed from near the floor. And at the far end, there was a door, slightly open. I felt a tightness in my chest. I didn't know why. It was just a hallway, but something about it felt wrong. Then the door moved, slowly, opening a little more, and I realized something. The number on the door, 311, my room number. I stopped breathing. That didn't make sense. That wasn't possible. The camera was showing my hallway, from the floor, facing my door. Then I saw movement inside the room, a shadow, someone moving around. Inside my room, I turned my head toward my actual door, closed, locked. Then back to the TV. The shadow moved again, clearer this time. Someone walking across the room. I stood up slowly, every instinct telling me not to move closer. But I did. I stepped toward the TV. The image flickered. The shadow stopped. Then, slowly, it turned toward the camera, toward me, and the screen went black. The static stopped instantly. Silence. I stood there, frozen. Then I heard something behind me, a soft movement, inside the room. I turned. Nothing. Everything looked exactly the same, but the feeling was different, like something had just been there. I grabbed my phone and headed for the door. I didn't want to stay in that room anymore. As I reached for the handle, I hesitated. Then I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Normal. Exactly how it should be. I opened the door and stepped out. The hallway looked the same as always. No signs of anything unusual. But as I stood there, I noticed something. At the far end of the hall, near the corner, there was a camera, mounted low. Much lower than a normal security camera, almost at floor level, pointing directly toward my room. I hadn't noticed it before. I was sure of that. I stepped closer. The camera didn't move, didn't react, just sat there, watching. I went straight back downstairs. The front desk clerk looked up as I approached. "There's a camera on my floor," I said. "There should be," he replied. "No," I said. "Not like that. It's low," pointing at my door. He frowned slightly. "That's not possible," he said. "All cameras are mounted high." "I just saw it," I said. He stood up and walked around the desk. "Let's take a look," he said. We took the elevator back up. The hallway was empty, and the camera was gone. There was nothing on the wall. No mount, no wiring, nothing. I felt my stomach drop. "It was right here," I said. He looked at me, then at the wall. "There's never been a camera there," he said. I didn't go back to that room. I checked out immediately, even though I still had one night left. As I was leaving, I glanced at the security screens behind the desk one last time, and I saw my hallway again. But this time, the door to my room was open, and someone was standing inside, looking out, not moving, just watching the camera, watching me. I used to think hotel stories were exaggerated. Every time I heard someone talk about strange things happening in hotels, someone trying their door at night, hearing noises through the walls, seeing someone in the hallway who didn't belong, I always assumed there was a reasonable explanation. Hotels are busy places. People get confused, drunk, tired. Things happen. After this, I stopped thinking that way. This happened about 8 months ago during a solo trip. I wasn't traveling for work this time. I had taken a few days off to visit a city I'd never been to before. Nothing remote or isolated, just a normal city, busy during the day, quieter at night. I booked a hotel near the downtown area, close to everything I planned to do. The place looked good online. Modern, recently renovated, decent reviews. Nothing that stood out as a red flag. I checked in around 5 p.m. The lobby was clean, well lit, and there were a few people sitting around. The front desk clerk was friendly enough, gave me my key card, and told me I was on the 6th floor. When I got to the elevator, I noticed something small that I didn't think about until later. The 6th floor button was scratched more than the others, like it had been pressed a lot. That didn't mean anything at the time. It does now. My room was near the middle of the hallway, not at the end, not near the elevator, just in between. The hallway itself felt normal, carpeted, evenly lit, quiet. I passed maybe 2 other rooms on the way, both closed. No noise from inside. When I got to my room, I did the same routine I always do. Check the bathroom, check the closet, look behind the curtains. Everything was fine. I dropped my bag, turned on the TV, and sat down for a bit before heading out for dinner. That first evening was completely normal. I came back around 9:30 p.m., locked the door, and settled in. I watched something on TV, scrolled on my phone, and eventually got ready for bed around midnight. Before I lay down, I checked the door again. Locked. Deadbolt on. Everything secure. I went to sleep. Sometime later, I woke up to my phone vibrating on the nightstand. At first, I thought it was an alarm, but when I picked it up, I saw it was a call from the hotel front desk. That confused me immediately. I answered. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then the front desk clerk said, "Hi, this is the front desk. We just received a call from your room." I sat up. "What?" I said. "We received a call from your room phone about a minute ago," she repeated. "We just wanted to check if everything was okay." I looked over at the phone on the desk. It was sitting exactly where it had been since I checked in. I hadn't touched it. "I didn't call," I said. Another pause. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yes," I said, now fully awake. "I've been asleep," she sounded uncertain. "Okay. Well, sometimes the lines can glitch. If everything's fine, then it's probably nothing." "Yeah," I said slowly. "Everything's fine." We hung up. I stared at the phone for a long moment. Then I looked at my own phone. 2:14 a.m. I told myself it was a glitch. That made the most sense. Old systems, crossed lines, something like that. I lay back down, but I didn't fall asleep right away. I kept looking at the room phone, just sitting there, completely still. Eventually, I drifted off. Then it happened again. My phone vibrated. Another call. Same number. Front desk. This time, I answered faster. "Hello." "Hi," the same voice said, sounding more confused now. "We just got another call from your room." I felt my chest tighten. "I didn't call," I said immediately. There was a longer pause this time. Then she said, "Can you check your room phone?" I looked over again. Still on the desk, receiver in place. "I'm looking at it," I said. "It hasn't moved." "Okay," she said slowly. "That's strange." That was an understatement. "Can someone come check it?" I asked. She hesitated. "Security is limited overnight," she said. "But we can have someone come up in the morning." That didn't make me feel better, at all. We hung up again. I didn't try to sleep after that. I sat there, watching the phone, waiting. Nothing happened for about 20 minutes. Then I heard something. A faint sound, from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow, passing by my door, then stopping. Right outside. I held my breath. No knock, no voice, just silence. Then, a soft click from inside my room. I turned slowly toward the desk. The room phone. The receiver had moved. Not off the hook, just slightly tilted, like it had been lifted, and then set back down. I stood up immediately. Every part of my body felt cold. There was no way that should have been possible. No one else was in the room. The door was locked. The deadbolt was on. The windows didn't open. I knew that. I had checked. Then the phone rang. Loud. Sharp. Right in front of me. I froze. It rang again. I forced myself to move. Slowly, I stepped toward it. The caller ID screen lit up. Front desk. I picked it up with shaking hands. Hello? There was no response, just silence. Then, a faint breathing sound. Not from the line, from behind me. I turned. Slowly. The room looked exactly the same, but something felt different, like the air had shifted. Then I heard it again. The breathing. Closer this time. I spun back toward the phone. Still silent. Still connected. Then the voice came, through the phone, and behind me, at the same time. You called. I dropped the receiver. It hit the desk and dangled, still connected. The voice continued. Same words. Same tone. You called. Over and over. I ran to the door, unlocked the deadbolt, pulled it open. The hallway was empty. Completely. I didn't go back in. I went straight to the elevator, down to the lobby. The front desk clerk looked up, startled. I didn't call, I said immediately. She nodded slowly. I know, she said. That stopped me. What do you mean? I asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, You're not the first. I stared at her. First what? She glanced toward the back office, then leaned in slightly. Room's on the 6th floor, she said. Sometimes they call the desk. That doesn't make sense, I said. I know, she replied. I didn't go back to that room. I stayed in the lobby until morning. Then I checked out early. Before I left, I asked one last question. Which rooms? She looked at her screen, then back at me. Yours, she said, and the one next to it. I didn't ask anything else. But as I walked past the elevator, I noticed something I hadn't paid attention to before. The 6th floor button, scratched, worn, like it had been pressed over and over again, late at night, by people trying to leave.